I'm a big fan of researchers embedded into product teams, especially when we talk about user research. Easy to get user insights, but it's hard to get quality user insights. And it can be tricky to know the difference.
How is AI changing user insight journey today?
I use it for brainstorming approaches to things, finding holes in my survey logic, but yeah, it's rare that I would directly use something from AI. It's more of a sparring partner.
Hi everyone, welcome to Research Secrets, a show where we uncover real user insights to build better products. My name is Wilson, co-founder of BlockSurvey. Today I'm joined by Deanna from Netherlands. Deanna, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Thanks for having me on. I am a user researcher and I'm currently working at Polarsteps in the Netherlands. And I've been doing research for my whole career. Recently, I've been really enjoying building up research practices at organizations. And yeah, it's just what I've been loving to do these past few years.
Thanks, that's helpful. Deanna, tell us, how did you get into user research?
Yeah, I guess maybe this is the same for a lot of researchers, but it wasn't a super direct path. I started my undergraduate degree, university degree, studying sociology, amongst some other things, and I ended up being really inspired by a professor that I started working with. It was the starting point of research in a professional setting that I was exposed to. I got to work together with a professor on some of her research in the sociology department, and I saw how people were just tackling curiosities as part of their professional work. And so it got me thinking like, oh, how can I turn this into a career for myself? And at the same time, I'd been really curious in what was happening in the digital space. And I did a master's in digital experience innovation at the University of Waterloo. And that was just a blend of a lot of things like digital business, user experience. And this was a great combination for me, combining sociology and then this digital part. And I kind of fell into user research after that. I saw that it was an option. It was not super popular at a lot of companies, but there was a company that took a chance on me as a new grad, and I've been doing it ever since. So, yeah, user research started doing that in e-commerce, and then I've just moved around to different companies ever since then.
Awesome, that's interesting. What got you curious into digital experience? You mentioned, I think you started with sociology. Did you chance upon them? What got you to hooked into digital experience?
So this just goes back to me as a kid being really into computers. I liked to build my own websites using different tools with not like super into coding, but into some of these, I don't know, build your own website things that were available at the time. And then I got really into video editing software, and I wanted to see how I could do more of that as a job, as a career, but I didn't really wanna sit at a desk and do bureaucratic tasks. I wanted to do something more in touch with where technology was going and the innovative part of it, to be very vague.
Got it. Now you have gotten into user research, right? From sociology to this user research. Do you see if someone is studying sociology today? I'm sure they are researching people, helping social organizations to understand the people better. If you have to marry a few of the ideas from sociology to the digital experience, what are some three top things that they can take from that domain and apply here?
Ooh, things that they can take from sociology to apply here. Actually, some people think your social science degree is worth very little these days, but I think the opposite. I think it gives you a really good foundation for business, for doing this kind of work. Understanding people, understanding patterns. That's exactly what I do. Sociology students today, learning about research methods, you're well set up for this career path. learning about ethics and how to run research in an ethical way, and also just how to formulate questions, how to take curiosities that you have and formulate those into really well structured questions. Those are skills that can take you into a lot of different areas. It doesn't really matter the subject material that you study. It helps to be interested in it, but if you learn those skills, those are great skills to have.
How has things changed in the last couple of years, like specifically in your work, what you do? I see you have about 10 years of experience. If you could talk through the last couple of years, how things have changed in your space.
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer that question because I know what's changed for me. So I'll answer from my experience, and that is I moved from doing research more from a place of curiosity to doing research more from a place of business impact or with the goal of business impact. And I feel like nowadays that's obvious. Like you do research in a business and that has business impact. But for me, I think developing in my career, that was a transition that I had to take and learn myself. So when I started my career, I was really like learning the skills of user research. There was no school where I was from to learn the skills of doing user research, like running studies. You have the basics of research methodology, but I was learning a lot of the details on the job. So it was really about doing it for the enjoyment of it and to make a digital experience better for the people using it, and to make more human-friendly experiences. And I think that's a great place to start from, but I think more recently, there's been a bigger push to do or to approach research in a more business-minded way. So to run research projects that have more impact, to run research projects that directly relate to roadmap items that a company might have. So for me, research in the last couple years has changed. It's just become a little bit more intentional when it comes to the businesses that it's serving. And I always now make sure that my time is spent doing projects that will have a lot of business impact.
Awesome. I like how you phrased it human friendly experiences. Can you tell me more about what does human friendly experiences mean to you? I mean, yeah, how it should be seen by people out there.
This was how I described my job to my friends and family because it's really tricky to describe it to people who aren't in the space. But yeah, I've kept using it ever since. And human friendly to me is just a really broad way to say that anyone who picks up and uses your product should be able to do that. And you can define that in whatever way makes the most sense. But people who have, different are differently abled should be able to use your product if it's a product that's available for them. People of different backgrounds, people who understand maybe interaction types or technology more than others. It needs to be human friendly. It needs to enable something that the human wants to do and not make it more difficult. And I think of government websites as a good example for this. If you need to be doing something on that government website as a human, don't make it difficult for that human to get what they need. Make it super easy.
Got it. Sure. Now, in your given day to day work, I just wanted to know gathering user insights, how does that process look like?
Yeah. Yeah. At Polarsteps, we are embedded into different product teams. And at the beginning of every period, so we actually work in thirds rather than quarters at Polarsteps. At the beginning of every third, I'll sit down, I'll review the company goals, I'll review the team goals, and then I create a roadmap of research together with our PMs, together with our head of product, with our head of design and brand. So every day through that third, we're working on projects that have impact on the things that are on that roadmap or things that will be coming in the next third. So that's what insights collection looks like broadly. It's really this embedded model where a researcher sits with specific, we call them pillars or project
Mhm.
teams or yeah, however you want to call them. And then more practically speaking, insights collection looks very different from day to day. So yeah, today I might be running interviews. Tomorrow I might be analyzing those interviews, creating moderation guides. The next day I might be doing a lot of administrative things on participant recruitment or looking into our product analytics. So it's a mixed bag.
Awesome. Great. Now, from the insights, you talked about business impact, right? So, how do you translate these user insights to, okay, here are the changes we can do, lead into business impact? How does that process look? How long does it take? Just want to hear.
It kinda depends on the team that you're working on for us, it depends on the goals, the projects, but broadly speaking, we work in sprints, so sometimes the team might wanna learn something super quick, and we sit down and we figure out, "Okay, what do you wanna learn?" And then we'll have a pitch for how they might do this, and we're always asking, "What is this actually going to do for you? What decisions are you trying to make with these insights that you gather?" And if it's more, well, I just wanna know this, then maybe it's not a research project that needs to happen. We push more to get involved when they're intending to use insights to make a decision, and so that could be, yeah, these sprint-based quick learnings that a team will want to have, or it could be more long term. So it could be, "Yeah, at the end of this year, I need to decide X." And then we'll say, okay, if you want to decide X by the end of this year, here's how we might be able to help you do that. And then we can agree on like a plan together. So by the time they're making that decision, they already have the insights that they need to support that decision making. And then we'll also look at other angles. So if we're working with a PM, they're probably looking at the product analytics, at customer support data, other channels, social channels, to gather insights to make their decision.
That's helpful. Can you walk us through what tools do you use and for what across the entire journey of getting this work done?
Okay, yeah. Notion is a really big tool for us in research at Polarsteps, and that's because the company uses Notion for a lot of the documents. So in other companies that I've worked at, Notion wasn't used, and so it wasn't a top tool. But right now, since that's where people are and that's where a lot of the eyes are going, that's where we want to exist as well. And I think that's really important is for research to exists in the place that is already top of mind for people. So Notion is a big one for us. That's where we'll put all of our documents. So that could be project outlines, research proposals, research plans. It'll have like comments from everyone, like chiming in with ideas. That's where we have some results as well. It's where our like project board is. That's where the starting place. We use Dovetail. That's where we analyze our qualitative user interviews, for example. So it's a great tool for doing analysis. We also write reports in there, but the reports we link those in Notion, or we'll have top insights in Notion. We use Slack, of course, just for communicating with teammates, but we also have survey responses going into to different Slack channels. We have like an insights channel where we share all of our insights. We use Refiner for surveys, Ballpark for unmoderated studies. We've been using Granola a little bit for transcripts or yeah, just meeting transcripts or user interview transcripts. Figma for whiteboarding. The designers also use Figma for design, so that makes a lot of sense. For creating presentations as well, we use Figma. We'll use Claude for AI things, so dabbling with AI, Calendly for scheduling, DeepL for translations, and Zoom for running interviews. So it's of little things. We also say, like, if you wanna use something else that makes more sense for you, that's cool, like, try it out.
Thanks. How is AI changing the entire user insight journey today?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. So I guess a few years ago, we didn't really use AI all that much, or it was just starting to become a thing. So it really wasn't part of our process. And then slowly we started to dabble with AI. And so it's really been at Polarsteps that I've been working where it's become more of a thing, more of something that we will use. And I find for more generic context light things, for example, understanding survey responses, then AI has been a really great starting point for that. And we'll use it for identifying top themes from survey responses or using it as a starting point for some high level analysis on things. Quicker learnings. So, yeah, when we get these quick learnings, that means that we can spend more time doing other things. So that's been a great help. But we don't really rely on it for all that much. I'm really hesitant to just take what AI delivers and run with it. Even with survey responses, I find that you have to double check the numbers because it's not always reliable. So, yeah, I approach it very cautiously. But with kind of low risk tasks, small tasks, it is helpful to have AI to support that and to alleviate some of the work so you can work on more complex tasks. And I also use AI myself in my research work. It's kind of like a sparring partner for me. So if I'm writing a screener, I'll use it to see, okay, could I think about this from another angle? Or for recruitment emails, sometimes it's nice to get some ideas on how else to phrase things, but I always end up like editing it heavily. I use it for like brainstorming approaches to things, finding holes in my survey logic, but yeah, it's rare that I would directly use something from AI. It's more of a sparring partner.
What's the hardest part in getting user insights today?
I think that it's easy to get user insights, but it's hard to get quality user insights. And it can be tricky to know the difference. And I think as you develop as a researcher or, yeah, even anyone in the fields in this space, you start to realize like what good insights look like versus okay insights. And it comes down to asking questions in the right way, targeting the right people to gather those insights, knowing how those insights apply to you or your organization and where you're going in that organization. So I think the hardest part of collecting user insights is knowing what a good insight looks like.
That's great. Tell us about passive data collection and active data collection. I've seen organizations using analytics embedded inside their products to create digital experiences. And
Mhm.
then they also have researchers to speak to their customers, users to understand them better. I want to hear from you. How should one approach both these worlds?
Yeah, doing both at the same time is where I think you want to be, if it makes sense for what you want to learn. Passive data collection to me, I think of like customer satisfaction scores, NPS, if that means something to you, customer effort scores, like scores that you might collect, are also seeing how users navigate through your product, seeing where there's issues in conversion, or seeing when there's a rise in usage on something, a fall in usage on something, whatever makes the most sense for your product. And to me, to be able to collect that is super powerful because at a mass level, like quantitatively speaking, it's just so useful to know that. But then marrying that with qualitative insights is also super important. Talking to your users, your customers, understanding the why behind the what that you've learned quantitatively can give you deeper, richer insights that numbers can't give you. Yeah, it's hard to say like which one should you do first or which one matters most because it just depends on what you're learning, what you want to learn, or what your goals are. And sometimes it's easier to collect quantitative insights or to collect these passive insights, and that's great. And maybe if that's all you need to make a quick decision, then that's awesome. It can also be really hard to set up these more quantitative, passive insights. Maybe you don't have the right targeting options, or maybe the company technical infrastructure isn't ready for that, and then you need to lean more heavily on qualitative insights. But yeah, I'm always a fan of doing both and filling in the blanks that each leave with the other.
Got it. If you could have a magic wand and say fix one thing in how user insights or research is done today, what would it be?
You used the magic wand question, which is a brilliant one that I use a lot in user interviews, so I appreciate that. But yeah, if I had a magic wand, I think I would go back to the topic of embedded researchers for this because I think that when organizations hire a researcher, if they don't necessarily know what impact a user research can have on that organization, it can be really tricky for that researcher to prove themselves, prove the value of the work, find projects that they can make an impact on, and to do that and support an entire organization. It totally works for some organizations. I understand that. But I'm a big fan of researchers embedded into product teams, especially when we talk about user research. I've been in both situations, but when I have the choice, I like to set up the embedded model. I find that researchers who sit with teams, they build a lot of product context and they build working relationships that are really important. And they're highly motivated because they're able to celebrate the successes of teams. They're able to notice when things aren't going well, and they really share in the team and in the team goals. When you're not embedded, every time you move to a new project, you have to relearn that product area, relearn how this team works, how they like to receive insights, how they like to work. You might not fully understand their goals, so it takes a bit of time to adjust the research plan so that it's really getting what they need. And then in the end, when you are done the project, you leave, so it's harder to go back to previous insights and to keep those fresh and relevant and have the team remembering those insights and acting on them. But when you're embedded, you're part of the team, so it's just you can build more rituals with that team. You have the product context. You can start to be more proactive with the research that you're doing. You notice things, you start suggesting things. I really love the embedded research model. I feel like it has a lot more potential for positive business impact.
Interesting. Can you tell me more on, say, if someone is listening to this, right, a user researcher wants to adopt embedded research, how can they approach their organization and what are the three things they can do to get started with?
Yeah, when I start and I have this in mind, it's tricky when you're just one person to say, I only want to serve one team. So it doesn't necessarily work in that case. And I recognize that maybe it's a luxury position when you're able to have more than one researcher. But even if you're one, focusing or understanding like which area of the business does it make most sense for me to serve right now? And sitting with that team for a while. I believe I pitched this kind of like as a pilot starting off to say, okay, let's just identify one area that could really use some user insights right now. So I looked at what the teams were doing, what their goals were, and I identified some teams where I thought, okay, there's some quick wins that I could help with here. And then I could also set them up for more long-term wins. And then just said, this is what I want to focus on. This team I want to sit with. And the rest of the teams I'll help in a lower effort way. And luckily for me, people were interested in proceeding with this. And yeah, it had great success. And we moved forward with the embedded model. So I think, yeah, if you're starting at a company or if you're at a company and you want to lean into the embedded model, I think positioning the benefits of that for a particular team could help. It could also be good to look at previous projects and maybe when you had to spend a little bit more time on a project because you didn't quite get the context or the team wasn't quite able to collaborate as seamlessly as you would have liked, and to identify the risks that poses if that continues for the next couple of years or whatever.
Mm.
I don't know
Well,
if that
that's
was
helpful.
three, but
I think it's helpful. I see how organizations can get there, right? Even if, like you said, one person member would be able to at least tell them what could be, how they could be valuable to the organizations to create that impact. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as well, like if the organization is looking at introducing a new product or going through a major revamp on something, those are great areas to get involved with because there's a lot of hype around it as well. So you can, yeah, help out when things are maybe more ambiguous than in other areas.
Sure. Now, the next segment is for someone either starting their career in the space or currently getting started on their job. Just few questions around it, and then we'll move from there. Okay, say if you were starting over, knowing what you know now, what would you
Yeah.
do differently in running user research?
Yeah. If I were to start over now, what would I do differently? Yes. So for me, if I were to do it over again, it's not necessarily about the research part, but more about the business part, because I think knowing or learning about business earlier in your research career is super, super important. Your stakeholders are thinking in a certain language, they're thinking in business terms, and it really helps to meet them where they are. And so that comes with, yeah, the language that you use, understanding goals and how goals are set, how goals work at a company, and how research insights work with those goals or work to help meet those goals, and really understanding what impact at a business means for your stakeholders is so super important. So, yeah, when you work at a company, it's a business, and knowing how a little bit how a business runs, how they set their goals, what success looks like for them. I think that's really, really valuable and is really helpful in running impactful, effective research. If you can get that right at the beginning of your career, it sets you up so well.
That's very helpful. To be up to date on user research as part of work, upskill, to be really aware of what is going on, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple approaches I have to this. So, one is I like to attend conferences. There's a few that you can attend online and allow you to view the recordings later, which is also nice. And I find that it kind of shows you the topics of the day and keeping up with the industry there. So, the ones that I like are called the UX 360 Research Summit and the UX Insight Festival. Those are two that I look for every year. And then I also just really like following other researchers and seeing what resources they're sharing on LinkedIn and seeing conversation. I try not to spend too much time on LinkedIn, but there are some people who I enjoy following to hear their hot take on things, or if they have a newsletter, then I like to follow that and read along. I also think as a researcher, you don't always have to be just upskilling your research skills, but also other things that interest you or other things that relate to you. So, as a researcher, if you know that your strengths are running interviews, I think it's a great idea to lean into those strengths as well and to make them even stronger. I'm a big fan of that, on leaning into your strengths. But if you're looking to strengthen other areas, then I think there's lots of things related to research that contribute to that. So communication skills, always good to get more tips on how to improve communication skills. I once took a speaking class, and they teach you how to present yourself, how to use hand gestures. This is not something that maybe you directly think, oh, that's a user researcher skill or that's a customer researcher skill. But as researchers, we need to share research. And part of that is talking to other people. So learning how to do that in an engaging way, learning how to present yourself to a room is so super important. I also love learning ways on how to engage people with text. So, experimenting with different ways to share research insights, seeing which one sticks, which one maybe doesn't stick so much, and upskilling yourself just within your own circle, within your own domain. So, yeah, communication skills, or maybe if you're more on the leadership side, learning more about leadership. There's a book on radical candor that is a great book to read. And then, of course, business skills, like learning more from the people around you. Like if you work with product managers or business analysts, learning how their brain works. So it's not always that for me that upskilling is about courses or books or specific things, but also about just taking advantage of the people and the opportunities around you to explore different ways of doing things and yeah, just to be curious.
Great resources. That's valuable. Where can people find you? How they can connect with you?
I am not super on social media or anything, but I am on LinkedIn. So I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone on the topic on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me.
Okay. I'll add your links in the description. Thank you so much for joining us, Deanna.
Thank you, Wilson.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like the show, share it with a friend who would like this. See you in the next episode.